What up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Black Top Podcast. We're here on a beautiful Saturday, but by the time you're going to be hearing this, I believe it'll be Monday. And with that, I believe that's the start of training camp, if I'm not mistaken. So that means we're that
Yeah,
much closer to the NBA season. As y'all can see, we're two-man gaming it today. Christian had to work, but that's all right. Reuben, my dude, how you doing?
doing good, man. It's been a while. Some medical things and then some scheduling conflicts, but we're back. We're back in the hood, ready to go.
And you know,
How are
you,
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 bro?
you've been getting buckets in the Pinoy League.
Dude, there's a new league my buddy started, and it's funny. Most of them are Pinoy, but there's a bunch of other guys that come through, and yeah, it's some pretty good runs. Before that, I was at the Filipino basketball league. I was in Winnipeg and Seattle, so yeah,
That
I've been playing a lot of basketball, so I've been having a good off season.
I mean, you know what they say about Winnipeg? It's the Manila of Canada. Okay, I completely made that up. But
There's a lot of Filipinos, but in
oh,
terms of a
no
city,
doubt.
man,
Yeah, I'm
dude,
pretty sure it was
I
the
did.
first Canadian city to get a Jollibee too, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so. I literally when I was there. What do you call it? Not even 10 minutes after landing, I was like, yeah, I hate this city.
I mean,
Bro,
there's a reason why most of them move here. Anyways, moving on from that. Today we're here to talk about the off season. We're pretty much on like the precipice of the actual start of the season, I feel. And with
yep.
that, most of the rosters are set. All these big moves have been made. KD is still a Brooklyn net. So let's talk about stuff like that. We're gonna break down, the tiers we have teams in, and then we got a few questions to break down. And yeah, let's get started. Ruben, my brother. So when we talk about tiers, I mentioned I have like kind of five tiers I've set teams at. I'm curious what you got though.
Okay, so I've been thinking about this a little bit. So I have the contenders,
Mm,
I have the regular season winners, and then I have the pretenders. Right? I think it's the pretenders. You could easily say teams that think they're coming in with a lot of talent, or teams that think they're going to be good, or obviously teams that are just pretending to win games but lose games on purpose for Victor Wembanyama. So,
or
uh,
Scoot Henderson. You never
yeah,
know.
oh, Scoot Henderson looks great.
Scoot
Hey, he
Henderson's
looks good.
nice.
I didn't do my actual tier setup, but I mean, if we name off those teams, it'll be pretty easy to throw them in there. So I mean, for me, there's yeah, three tiers that I look every season when I evaluate a team before coming into the year.
I respect that. So I'm curious, who do you have as like the clear cream of the crop contenders in the East?
So for now, I definitely have Golden State and Boston.
Mm,
Boston's a funny one because I
that's
don't know how much you want to talk about that situation.
I
That's
mean
that's a topic on its own.
yeah, I think we'll leave it to this. It's a muddy situation to say the least, but I think if there's a team that can kind of rise through, and as we've seen, they've overcome adversity before, I think Boston is that team.
Yeah, yeah. I think Boston's that team. I think they've got the makeup for it. I mean, um, just speaking purely on basketball, like the acquisition of Malcolm Brogdon, I think just helps them, and they were just in the finals, right? So I got to take the two teams that were in the finals. I do like Phoenix being there again since they're kind of right back where, they stayed pat mostly with their team. I have to say Dallas, and this is gonna go into the question that we were thinking of. It's like a team outside of my team. Like, are you putting which team are you putting stock into this year? And I'm gonna transition that question into this tier, and I'm gonna say the Clippers. This was my one hot
I
topic that I
respect
wanted to
that.
talk about. They are gonna win the West this year. They are gonna win the Western Conference this year, in my honest opinion. And that's what I was telling you beforehand. I was like, I got a really strong, firm opinion about something about the West this year, and I think the Clippers are gonna win the West, and I think they're very much the top of the contender pool this season. Because if they're fully healthy, right? If you're talking about John Wall, who has actually played really well when he's been healthy, and then you add Kawhi Leonard back, who looks like he's in really good shape, and then Paul George, who's coming off like a really good recovery season as well. And then they added all those pieces throughout last year. Like I'd have to say like the Clippers, right, are the cream of the crop of contenders. So Right now, I've got the 4 teams that were in the conference finals last year. I've got the Clippers, and then I've got the Bucks. I've got
That's a
6 teams
solid
there.
list. That's a solid list.
Yeah.
To be frank, I'm not gonna lie. I thought we were just doing the East, but that's totally okay. I'll change up
Oh,
on
my
the fly
bad, my
here.
bad,
No worries,
my bad.
bro. You know, the blacktop. Not everything goes according to plan. So, we go keep rolling with it.
I got a freestyle, you know what I'm saying?
100%. Yeah, I think
Little inside joke for y'all.
Huddies. Okay. When it comes to clear contenders, I guess for me, without kind of straying off the path of what I've catered for, I'll stick to the East. So when I'm thinking clear contenders, I think there's three. The Celtics and the Bucks are the obvious two. I think those were undoubtedly the two. Fuck it, I'll say they were the two best teams in the East when you look at kind of on paper, how they were playing, all that kind of stuff. And then the third team, this might be a little controversial in a sense that there's another team I'm going to leave off, but for me, it's the Sixers. I think that, you know, the Philadelphia Rockets, the Houston 76ers, or excuse me, the Philadelphia 76ers, I think had not necessarily like an amazing offseason, but I think that a player that really has a chance to be not necessarily a star, but really be a star in their role, I think is D'Anthony Melton. We saw how he was able to still put up, I believe it was like about 12, 5, and 2. And that's being necessarily probably the third guard off the bench when you have arguably the best backup in Tyus Jones. Now you put him on a scene where he's undoubtedly kind of the six man, or at least the go-to guard when you're looking to your bench unit, and dude's looking nice. That's all I can say. And leading into that, the Heat. I think that the Heat are obviously, so I have 5 tiers just to bring it back a bit. I have like my clear contenders, I have solid, and I have kind of this boom bust potential where I think they're either going to be like overachieve or really bad in a sense that there's kind of like no room for middle in my opinion. And then the middle, I call it on the bubble. And then the complete opposite of the cream of the crop, I have it as the hashtag tank for Victor or Scoot. And a team that I have installed is obviously, as I mentioned before, Miami. Uh, Miami's a team that's always able to get it out the mud, always able to get the most out of players that you wouldn't assume. But that's all fine and dandy. But when you look at how much better the East has gotten, I think that they're definitely not going to be towards the top. They're still going to be top 6 for sure. But I just think that with the aging roster and the fact that you didn't really, I don't even think they really added anyone substantial this year when it comes to mine. I think they just threw out some contracts, but I don't think their needle hasn't moved at all. But with how much everybody's needle has moved, it's kind of putting them back in the pecking order. And that leads to a team like the Cavs, where on paper, undoubtedly, this is probably the best starting five, not necessarily even in the East, but in the NBA. But you obviously have that feeling of gelling together. It's not like you insert KD on the Warriors and then la di da. This is a team that's still relatively young. I mean, Donovan Mitchell's heading into his, I believe, age 27 season, so he's right about to hit his prime. He's right in that contention window that is slowly creeping open for the Cavs. But overall, I think this is going to be a year of, I wouldn't necessarily say complete growth, but just again, it's not, I don't think it's going to be this whole going through the murders row of the East and smacking everybody. They're obviously going to go through their hurdles. They still have undoubtedly one of the smaller backcourts in the league, but you know, what did JB Bickerstaff do? Completely went across the notion of small ball and threw out 3 7-footers and worked out for the most part. But you know, we'll see how it works with this new backcourt. But I'm hesitant to put the Cavs in like a contender sense, just because again, it's their first year together, and yeah, when it comes to like boom bust potential team, that the one team I'll highlight I think is the Nets. On paper, again, one of the better teams in the league, but you know, can they overcome the Kevin Durant drama? Can they overcome Steve Nash being a piss poor coach, to be honest? And again, when you look at all the players they have, it should work. But should work and does work are two complete different things, especially in the context of basketball. But to kind of counter your point on the team you're putting stock on outside of our teams. For me, saw this graphic on Twitter. And it wasn't necessarily the genesis of this whole belief for me, but looking at the moves they made, I think the Pistons are in a prime position to not necessarily be top 6, but definitely competitive. I don't think they're going to be in like the bottom half of like the league this year as they were last year. When you look at like the roster, let me pull up this graphic. When we look at their 10-man rotation, pretty solid to say
And
the
they just picked
least.
up Bogdanovich
Yeah,
too, eh?
exactly. I think that was kind of the one where it's like, yeah, this team could be good. But just to quickly run it off, so obviously you got Cade, Jaden Ivey, Sadiq Bey, Bojan Bogdanovic, who was recently acquired, and Isaiah Stewart as your 5. And then the backups, the GOAT, Killian Hayes, the greatest French point guard to ever touch Earth. Alec Burks, who I think is another solid backup. Hamidou Diallo, nice, solid, wiry athlete. Marvin Bagley III, who I'm not going to say he's someone I always believed in, but he's definitely a guy that hasn't had a good go at it, we'll say. Like, he's had a
Yeah,
solid NBA career, but obviously being drafted before the likes of like Luca and Trey is obviously going to put that
yeah.
stain on him, yeah.
Well, I think the thing with Marvin Bagley is too the the good thing is he ended last season on a positive note with
Oh,
Detroit,
yeah.
right? Like he played really well to end the year. And that's mostly because he finally got an opportunity to play the role that he was hoping to play. And so, I mean, in Sacramento, there haven't been very many prospects that have developed into what they were supposed to be, other than maybe De'Aaron Fox, right? And De'Aaron Fox still has a lot of growing to do as a player. He still really hasn't hit that, that next gear, which everybody's been expecting to. Like he's a really good player, but all of this is to say it's development in the Sacramento organization is very far, and
To say the least, yeah, definitely.
you see the difference, right? When Bagley came to Detroit and he finally got an opportunity to play under Dwayne Casey, who's done a really good job actually of developing programs in the past, right? Like he saw it. He's developed what happened in Toronto. That's what allowed for a championship and for all these accolades to happen in Toronto, right? Because he brought in culture. And so Dwayne Casey's well known for that. I think this team's also going to be surprisingly good defensively because
No
I think
doubt.
they've got a lot of different bodies, a lot of different athletes, and I think they have a lot of versatility, which I think Dwayne Casey likes. Obviously, following the Raptors for many years and seeing what he likes to do on the defensive end, he likes a lot of versatility, being able to match up with different teams. And yeah, I think like you said, for me, Bogdanovich being acquired is definitely like it was the one key thing where I was like, okay, I think they're doing something here when you bring in a veteran player like that amongst your young core. I think that's really important, especially because when you have guys who have made successful careers in the league, right, and you pair that with young guys who seem to have quite a reputation about themselves with Cade Cunningham and Sadiq Bey, right? Like it's a lot to look forward to, and I think I don't know if they'll be a very good team this year, but I think they'll be a competitive team, right? And I think
Yeah, that's the
they won't
perfect
go into
wording.
games. Yeah, they won't go into games getting blown out by 20. I think this is a team that's going to be very competitive every game, and I think that while they'll lose, that's mostly because of their inexperience or the fact that this is just such a young squad still that lacks that talent at the end of the game to take over, right? And hopefully, Cade can eventually blossom into that. But ideally, I do like what's happening in Detroit, and it's hard to take the minute to go for the
All
long-winded
good,
answer,
yo.
but I really enjoy what I see in Detroit. I think like it's been a while since I feel like Detroit fans have had something to be excited about, and so they do have something excited about between Cade Cunningham and what they're doing over there. And they've also hired a number of great assistant coaches, including Brittany Donaldson from Toronto. She's just been given a nice promotion over in Detroit to join Dwayne Casey's staff. So they added Keith Bogans as well. Keith Bogans has had a long career in the NBA, and he's going to help out with their development. So yeah, I think Detroit has a lot to be excited about overall as an organization.
100%. And not to forget to mention, but they got one of the dudes who I think outside of Paulo has the most NBA ready body in Jalen Duren. I think he's going to be
Yeah,
solid. And then
Very
He's
good.
not on this graphic I saw, but Nerlens Noel, I believe, was in that trade too. And, obviously things haven't worked out how we were expecting when he was in college, but he's been able to turn into a pretty solid backup. So, and then with the Boyan thing, one thing I just want to say about that is I think it's a very low risk, high reward thing. You know,
Hmm.
you have the low risk in that he's on the 1 year contract. So if it doesn't work out, it's not going to burn you so much financially. And obviously, I'm not saying he's a guy that's going to catapult you into contention or anything like that. But like you were saying, they're going to be in a lot of competitive games this year. And even then, they're not really in the need to tank for a guy like Victor or Scoot. They have their two solid kind of pieces to build around, and obviously Cade and Jaden Ivey, and then Sadiq Bey is looking like the next up and coming 3-and-D wing. I think, yeah. Last thing, Detroit. Yeah, you hit it on the nail there. Detroit has a lot to be excited for. And then, uh, I'm curious, Ruben. So, you know, obviously you're putting a lot of stock into the Clippers, but you know, not to say, okay, basically what I'm getting at is that I think a lot of people have the mindset that they're going to be a good team, but I'm curious, not that it's like a shit team, but who is a team that's kind of perceived to be like end around here in the season that you think could maybe jettison up a bit? I'm curious.
Like a team that everyone thinks is not that good could actually be really good.
Yeah.
Uh, that's a great question, but this team has been circling my mind all off season, and I think we're not giving enough. Okay, I'll say this: a team that people aren't giving enough credit to that I think could be really good this year when healthy are the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah, that's my team
Because
for the West too. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, so for the West, sorry, so we'll say for the West, Jamal Murray coming back is a huge deal because that team was very good last season without him. That was a very good team last year. Nikola Jokic had an MVP year. I really like the fit that they had with Aaron Gordon. You're bringing back Michael Porter Jr. healthy. I really like the kid Bones Highland.
I
Like
love Bones. Yeah.
he looks like he's having a great offseason. I think he's going to transform into something really special. So I like the idea of that backcourt working together, and I think that's why they made that trade to send out Monte Morris and whatnot, right? To free up that space for Bones Highland. And so when you have like such a offensive repertoire guys between Bones Highland, Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., and Nikola Jokic. And don't forget, before Aaron Gordon went to Denver, he was the main offensive option in Orlando.
Oh,
And
of
he was
course.
also quite the good. Yeah, he was a great offensive option as well. So, I mean, I really like Denver. I really like Denver, at least in the West. I mean, I'll wait for you to cover the East side, but I really like what I see from Denver moving forward because there's also a very young squad too, and they're going to be building for a long time coming.
No doubt.
Um, Memphis is the very flashy team, but I think Denver is right in that same boat only because of the fact that they've held so much success, at least even for a longer period since they've had Jokic and Jamal Murray, and people don't give them enough credit because they're not a sexy team to watch, but they are very good. And so I think that's the one team that doesn't get enough credit that will be much better than I think they, or end up um, performing much better this season than we all think.
Yeah, no, Denver's definitely a team I'm going to watch a lot this year. Jokic literally led a team of backups to 48 and 21. Oh, no, that
That's
that
what,
doesn't work out, but like a 48 win season.
yeah.
Speaking of the Grizzlies, here's a hot take. It might not be too hot, but I think they go slip this year. They overachieved a lot last year, and I think not having Jaren Jackson for the first bit of the season is really going to hurt them in that they're losing their defensive
Hmm.
anchor. Because I mean, they came into last year guns blazing. They were the first team that really punched Golden State in the mouth. I remember. I think yeah, I'm pretty sure Memphis was their first loss on the season when they were like kind of wrecking through everybody, Murders Row,
Yeah.
all that stuff. But they're definitely still going to be in the playoffs. But I think second last year was definitely a bit of an overachievement. I'm thinking more like fourth to fifth is it was what I'm thinking with obviously LA getting back into things and Jokic is only getting better. So still gonna be solid, but Yeah. Another team on the East like that I'm kind of putting a bit of stock into Indiana. They didn't really
Hmm.
have much of their starters or even much of like their core players. And you think of last year, Miles Turner played like half the season, was very in and out of the lineup a lot. TJ McConnell pretty much missed the whole year. Obviously he's not the sexiest of names, but he's a guy that is PJ Tucker esque in that obviously he's not going to give you 20 points, but what he gives you in effort and just overall charisma on the defensive end, that can really, jettison your team. And this kind of leads into another question we're going to talk about players that are going to have a huge year. I'm in a big Tyrese Halliburton truther. He averaged 20 and 10 for the most part. Obviously it's a little bit of a smaller sample size, but in kind of researching for this episode, do I still have it? I don't, but I was looking up players that would average like 20 points and 10 assists because I mean, I think there were 40. It was like a weird high crazy amount of guys that averaged 20 points, like just 20 points last year. But when you add in the 10 assists, I think it's less than 10 guys. Tyrese Halliburton, I think, has the ability to really like fully cement himself as another player to add on to that list. And then when you look at the acquisition of Benedict Mathurin is a guy who low key is my dark horse for rookie of the year. Being able to slide into that backcourt role with Tyrese Halliburton and the way he plays, I think is going to really complement well. Buddy Hield is still one of the best shooters in the league. Miles Turner, if he plays like upwards of 60 games. And then looking at that, O'Shea Brissett, the Canadian Mandem. I think it's Terry Taylor, had a few solid games last year.
Hmm.
And then still another Canadian, even though I think he plays for the DR, I think, but what's homeboy's name? Chris Duarte. So
Chris Duarte.
yeah,
Yeah.
the Pacers, I wouldn't say they're necessarily a young up and coming team compared to a team like say the Pistons, but they're young enough to where I think you let this team develop for a few years together, and then hopefully it breaks out of the mold of Indiana mediocrity that got Paul George to dip out of there. But yeah,
Hmm.
but
Stock in the East, eh?
yeah,
So yeah, so I can't say the Raptors because it's got to be a team outside of our team. Um, but
even though
I will
the Raptors are gonna be solid, they're gonna be super good this
I
year.
will
I
make
think.
a comment that that Toronto will be very good. Teams, a lot of people don't give enough credit to the fact that they have an NBA All Star and All NBA player, and then the Rookie of the Year, who looks like he's about to be a superstar in year two.
Oh, he was
So
putting the fucking clamps on James Harden in that run, man.
yeah, I don't know, man. Like Scotty Barnes looks so scary, and apparently he grew to 6'10" this year. So
Oh fuck.
like and that's trouble. Like I said, this team won. I mean, this team finished sixth, right, or fifth in the NBA last year.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for injuries, I think this would have been a much more competitive series with the Sixers. Um, you have an NBA All Star in Fred VanVleet. You have an All NBA player. That's literally one of the top 15 players in the league, in Pascal Siakam. You have Scotty Barnes, who looks like he's about to be a top 20 player in the league sometime soon. And then you have one of the best coaches in the league. So it's like, and one of the best executives. So I don't know how they consistently get left off of the loop, but I mean, I'll say that I'll keep it there. Do you
Mm.
want to add a comment on that?
Yeah, and then I think another guy, in my opinion, without any of like the injuries he had for the season or the time he missed, OG Ananobi could have definitely been in
Yeah,
the conversation for MIP if he like played a lot more. I mean, in my opinion,
yeah,
I put him okay, maybe post NBA final or pre NBA finals, but uh throughout the regular season, I put him on the same tier with Jaylen Brown. They were both guys that weren't the main options, but you give them the ball, they'll get you a bucket. And then OG, obviously with his huge size, pause, is like one of the best clampers in the entire league. So
yeah,
the Raptors,
yeah,
it's scary hours, is what I'll say. It's scary hours for
yeah.
sure.
Scary hours. Yeah, OG doesn't get enough credit as a player too, but it's also kind of warranted because he's never been able to be healthy for a full season.
Yeah, that and he's not necessarily the flashiest of guys, but shout out,
No, he's not.
Scotty's riding for that man. That's love.
Well,
That's love.
mm, a team in the East that I think will be better than we give them credit for. Um, this is a hard one because for me, it's like the clear cut contenders and then those clear cut contenders, the solid teams, and then like the pretenders.
Yeah, there's not
So
necessarily
it's
that much move for like mobility. I think everything's
there's not.
decently
Everything
set.
seems pretty solid.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems pretty solid in the East, but we know who ultimately will come out of the East, I think, and I do want to say it's the Celtics and the Bucks. But a team that I think could be really solid this year, and I hate to admit it, because I go back and forth. One of the guys on Twitter, we seem to have really good interactions together, but I've been trying to convert him over to Toronto. But it's the New York Knicks. I think they can be a much better team than um, we give them credit for. Remember, they have Julius Randle, right? And I
Mhm.
think Julius Randle is still a very good player. I don't know what happened to him last season. Maybe it's just being hung over from the year that he had in 2021. But I really like what I see from the Knicks. They added Jalen Brunson. I am a big fan of him. I really am excited to see him work with Emmanuel Quickly and RJ Barrett. And I think RJ Barrett is the player that I think is going to have a huge year.
He
Um,
needs to definitely like kind of take the reins. I feel. Yeah.
yeah, at some point, and I think he showed that last season too. Is that when he has the ball and he's given the opportunity to be the guy, he's clear cut better than Julius Randle.
Dog. Yeah.
Um, yeah, when it comes to shot creation, he's also a very solid defender. So I'm gonna have to ride with our Canadian boy RJ Barrett, and then I really think the Knicks can be better than most people think. Their starting lineup is solid if it were to be what it is, which for and correct me if I'm leaving some players out here in the starting lineup, but Jalen Brunson, quickly, RJ Barrett, Julius Randle, Mitchell Robinson. That's a very good starting five. It's a very solid starting
I
five.
personally like Quickly as like more of like a 6 man role. I feel like you put in more of a Evan Fournier to kind of help with spacing a bit, but Quickly
I
is
like
for sure
Fournier
going to
there
be a
too.
big proponent of that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's Fournier there too, and if he's healthy, Tom Thibodeau might go
And
another.
don't forget, you know who they
Yeah,
got, Ruben? You know who they got?
let me know.
Motherfucking Cam Reddish,
Yeah,
my
God,
boy.
that's why I forgot about him. That's I didn't.
He's in
Derrick
the
Rose is
he's in
still
the
in New York, right?
doghouse. He's in the doghouse.
He's in the doghouse.
Uh, I believe that he should move again. If you're asking me, I believe Derrick Rose is still on that
Yeah,
team.
that's what
So
I'm saying. So if he's
crazy.
healthy, he very well could be the second guard to um, Jalen Brunson, which I kind of like the idea of having a two guard lineup out there since they're fairly big between Barrett Randall and Mitchell Robinson, and
Mm,
Robinson is a very good defensive anchor when healthy. Again, the problem is can the dude stay healthy because he's got a lot of potential.
I
But
mean,
yeah, I'll
shit.
say
He's better than Wilt when when you look at by the numbers.
that's true. You can't argue against the numbers. Yeah, I would say the Knicks. I think they can be much better than we give them credit for. But that I think a lot of that hinges on Randall coming back to being an NBA All Star caliber player, R.J. Barrett taking a huge leap, which I think he will, and Jalen Brunson being the guy that we thought he was, or like being the guy that he was in Dallas when they signed him, right? So there can't be any drop off there. There's a little room for error for New York to be bad this year. And if they are at any point going through a rough patch, it'll be very difficult for them to recover because the East is way too deep to have any lapses or any major injury troubles.
No doubt.
So we'll see.
And then what do you think about a guy like Quentin Grimes? Obviously kind of smoked everybody in like summer league, but obviously you take all
Yeah,
that with a grain of salt. Like, do you think he's poised to be one of like the breakout guys, or just gonna be alright this year?
I think so. I think so. But the thing is, this team is so log jammed at the guard spot, right? Like I
Mm,
think, um, you know, Tom Thibodeau likes he likes his veterans. So you're going to see a lot of Fournier and Derrick Rose out there. Obviously, Jalen Brunson's going to have to start. And then you're talking about, oh well, I flipping in Emmanuel Quickly and Quentin Grimes. Like, is there enough time? Like, I think Quentin Grimes can play a little bit of the three, but I
Yeah,
don't
you know,
know.
he's 6'5", so he's, I think, kind of the bare minimum you want for the height at the 3, especially today.
Yeah, I mean, if they choose to go small ball, I mean, he did play the three a little bit last year, anyways, too. Um, but I mean, there's a bit of a logjam, right? Like, so there, and then like you said, Cam Reddish, right? If he's in the doghouse or not.
He's gonna break
There's a
out.
lot of questions. There's a lot of questions about their rotation. I think that's the reason why they had all these talks with Utah to get Donovan Mitchell, because there's so many guys that they could deal in order for them to be a really good enough team, to stay a good enough team, and then also acquire Donovan Mitchell, right? So now they didn't make that trade. You've got a logjam of guys that could potentially be, potentially be really good players, take leaps, but it's hard to do that when there's not a lot of playing time to go around. So I do like Quentin Grimes though, and that's why his name was flirted around multiple times when it came to the Donovan Mitchell trade talks. So we shall see. I think this is a really interesting year for New York. I think they have a chance to be really good, better than we expect them to, or they just end up being really trash again, and everything looks like, oh, RJ Barrett was not a good pick, and Julius Randle not as good as we thought. It was a fluke year, or Jalen Brunson's not the dog we thought he was. Now you've signed him for a freaking max contract,
I
so
know. Oh,
basically.
lad. Respect.
So
Okay. I think last thing before we start to talk about more single players, Ruben, I'm curious. Like, you know, I've obviously kind of said my piece about Cleveland, but I'm curious to where you think they land this year in kind of the picking order of the East.
yeah, I think they're good. I would say closer to the bottom four of the playoff picture than the top four. Um, because while they're really good now offensively, like they've got their piece. Like like we talked about this before. This team struggled to find any consistent offensive source. And it was all by committee, and Darius Garland had an awesome season, and he'll continue to grow from that. And but Darius Garland also wasn't far from also one year being like literally the worst statistical player in the
Oh,
NBA
yeah.
in terms
People
of
forget about
impact,
that.
right? He was literally the worst player in the NBA, like statistically, impact. Um, and then he ended up being an NBA All Star with really good winning percentages and impact on the game. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that Evan Mobley covers up a lot of weaknesses for Cleveland. But everyone knows that I've said on this podcast several times that I don't think Mobley is as good as people make him out to be, and so I'm curious to see how he progresses this year. Because for me, he's too skinny for his role. He's not skilled enough to be a perimeter player. And he's just way too slow and or um lacks enough weight to be playing on the inside. So he's kind of in the in between. Um, and it's not like where Chet Holmgren, you see it come in, and he's got so many skills on the offensive end where he can take it up and down, put it behind his back, spin off defenders, that type of thing. Where I think he's got a significant advantage. Well, Evan Mobley kind of flirts on both ends, both sides. Sorry. So, we'll have to see how he progresses this year. I think a lot of that was also covered by the fact that they have Jared Allen.
Mm.
Do I think they have one of the best starting fives in the league? No, I don't, because Donovan Mitchell also has a lot of deficiencies, and him as a small ball guard beside Darius Garland is really rough for me to believe in will be any good defensively. Because Donovan Mitchell also can't guard anybody. He's been one of the worst defensive players, at least last season. And then Darius Garland, I mean, I don't know what the numbers are like defensively, but again, a lot of that is covered by the fact that they have two twin towers in the inside and can cover up a lot of mistakes. But that can only last you very long in the playoffs. And so we shall see. I think they have a lot of good offense now. And between Donovan Mitchell, that backcourt, Evan Mobley, I think we were talking about this. Who's going to start at the three? It would be. Would you say would start at the three? We were talking about this
I'm
before.
assuming when you're going off of fit and just how it would impact the team, I think Okoro, because I think it's obviously
Yeah.
between Levert and him. but
Yeah,
Levert's obviously more of a scorer, so I think you let him be like the six man
come off
kind
the
of thing.
bench.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's the thing. Okoro makes sense because at least he can guard the best perimeter player. But Isaac Okoro is not an OG Ananobi
No,
or
he's
a
not
Ben
Mikal
Simmons,
Bridges. Yeah.
or he's not a Mikal Bridges. I'm sorry. So you're gonna leave a lot to be desired on the defensive end to your big guys. It's a long-winded answer for me to say. I like the move they made for Donovan Mitchell because you do have to go dices in for the best player available, which they did, and then you worry about the rest later,
Mm.
which I think they will. And they're a young enough team where they can recover from this if it doesn't work out. Um, but I'm not completely sold on it being good because everything is so good on paper, but they could easily be a team that they were very good defensively last year. Remember, that was like one of their strengths. And now that they added a guy whose deficiency is on the defensive end, mind you, also very small, it's their style of play has to change, right? And so we'll see how it works out.
Mm.
I think they'll stay around again, bottom four in the playoff picture, just because of the fact that Donovan Mitchell is a huge chess piece to add, and they got to figure out a lot of things.
Yeah, for sure. Again, I think this year's more so kind of gelling together rather than like, all right, let's go win this shit kind of thing. But
Yeah.
alrighty, shifting gears a little bit, we've like kind of touched on it a little bit with players here and there, but who do you think is a player that's poised for a huge year? Who do you think is going to be a breakout player this year?
So I said RJ Barrett for New York. Um, I actually want to hear yours. I want to hear
I,
yours.
uh,
I do want to hear yours because like I shared one already.
mm,
I have another in mind, but I want to hear yours. What do you think? You might
yeah.
have the same one.
So obviously, I've touched on a couple. Tyrese Halliburton, I think he's like poised to potentially be a first-time All-Star. He's kind of on that short list. I feel. D'Anthony Melton, perfect year. He could potentially. I don't even know if I really want to throw him in the six-man like conversation, but if everything falls into place, if he's really like kind of stepping into this bigger role than he already had in Memphis, I think fuck it, he could do it. But a player I do want to highlight, I think, James Bouknight. He's a guy who
Mm,
didn't really get much burn last year, killed it in the G League, but obviously when you're a guard and you're stepping into Charlotte, it's very hard to carve out a role in that sense. But obviously with the situation that happened there and the fact that they didn't really get all that better, Bouknight I think is in the perfect situation to really be that kind of scoring option off the bench. Obviously, you'll have LaMelo and Terry Rozier taking up a lot of that starting lineup minutes and all that stuff. But when you look to a guy like Bouknight, a instant bucket, the ability to like really create for himself and all that, I think he's in the perfect situation to kind of like use the second unit as his playground in a sense. And not only that, I think the Hornets are going to be god awful this year. So
yeah, I
you
agree.
know Book Night gonna get them padded stats. You know Book Night
Yeah.
he go get the cherry stats and all that. So I think he's definitely poised to really cement himself into this rotation, not only for this year but for the foreseeable future. And then just a little aside from that, another guy I think on the same team could really be solid this year is PJ Washington. When you look to him and
Mm,
he who shall not be named, their stats are pretty identical leading up to like the breakout year the other dude had. But PJ Washington, I think, is a guy who has the ability to really be that, you know, that big that has the ability to play on the outside and on the inside pretty effectively. He's played center a little bit. I obviously prefer him more as like your four, but looking at the gaping hole that was left there with those 23 odd points that are off the board now, PJ Washington, I think, has the opportunity to slide into that role. And I mean, he's going to have to if he wants to pay off that child support with that trap he got stared in. But
mm.
yeah, jab aside, yeah, those are like looking to the east and looking at the guys who are primed with opportunity and I think have the opportunity to shine a little bit more this year. That's who I'm going with. What about you?
So I was gonna say a number of names, but then I think it would be a cop out to use second year players. I was gonna say, I was gonna say, um, what's the name? Franz Wagner.
Hey, no,
Uh,
yo, go ahead, man. I'm a
there's a
big
few. There's
fan.
a
I
few.
love Franz.
Yeah,
He pretty much carried me through fantasy for a good portion of the year last year.
Franz Wagner had a hell of a year. I was gonna say like Franz Wagner. I was gonna say Jalen Green. Who was the other guy that I was gonna mention? Ayo Dosomu. I thought those guys are gonna have huge years, but I will stay away from the cop out of a second season because typically second year players are supposed to make a major leap, right? So I'll
Mm.
stay away from the conversation. I'll think about guys who are like gonna have a huge year and I think gonna make an impact when they didn't do that last year. So I have a few guys in mind. Um, Number one off the top of my head right now is John Wall for the Clippers. I think he's going to make a
Solid
huge
pick.
impact. And I mentioned this earlier. I think John Wall is going to have a huge impact on the Clippers. He looks healthy. He's meshing well, at least from what we've seen in the offseason. And even when he was playing unhealthy in Houston, he was averaging 22 and 8. He just basically did that in his sleep. So I like the double guard combo of him and Reggie Jackson. I'm really excited to see that, and then paired that with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. I mean, the problem that sustained itself in the last few seasons between their star forward combo is they really lacked another guy who can do a lot of shot creation, whether it's for them or for himself. And while Reggie Jackson seems to have taken that next step, at least from the perimeter, like he's been able to hit a lot of really good. I mean, he's been able to hold a good enough perimeter percentage, like to be an honest 3 point shooter. But when you have a guy who can get downhill like John Wall and create a lot of havoc, it can pretty much manipulate the control of the game, like the traffic defensively, get guys in spots, create his own shot. And I think what's going to be important here is that small pick and roll, pick and pop between Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, with those two guys as the screeners. And I think Zubac is going to be a huge beneficiary,
He's poised for
huge
a good year too.
beneficiary.
Yeah.
He's poised for a big year because he's playing alongside John Wall, who's been one of the best pick and roll players in the league right over the last few years. And you saw how Marcin Gortat got so much money. A guy like Andre Blatch got so much money. All these dudes got so much money because John Wall made them money. And so I think John Wall is the number one guy off the top of my list. Um, the other one that I was really thinking about hard on is I think he did have a really good year last year and prior to that. But in terms of impact, I think Christian Wood is going to have a huge impact on Dallas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he'll have a huge year with Dallas, and I think he's going to be healthy because it's different, right? When you come into a situation knowing you're not going to be a very good team, but you are around one of the best players, you might be like, take it easy, right? Like I think I don't want to get hurt. I just want to be out there. I'm just going to get paid. Let me be out there. Oh, sorry guys. Like how many times did he miss this year with headaches?
Yeah. There
Like I
were
had
there
him
were
in
a lot
fantasy.
of
You had
like
him in fantasy
character
too,
issues
right?
this year for him. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was like, "Man, I had a lot of migraines and headaches," and didn't he have a team suspension at some point?
Yeah.
And
I think it was after a game, I believe with the Kings, where he kind of told off the assistant.
it was him and Kevin Porter Jr. both had a blow up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's I think being in Dallas, playing under Jason Kidd, alongside a guy like Luka Doncic, who is regarded as one probably the best rising star at the moment. Um, and then him being a huge offensive option, you pair that with who they have there now, JaVale McGee and Dwight Powell. That's a formidable
That's
front
solid
court.
front court.
That's solid. And then remember, even though they lost Jalen Brunson, they still have Spencer Dinwiddie. They're bringing back Tim Hardaway Jr. to the fold. They've got Dorian Finney-Smith. I just think Christian Wood is in a great place right now where you can plug him in. He's that like 20 and 10 guy. Boom, you're gonna get what you need on the offensive end. I think he's gonna be deadly in the pick and pop and roll with Luka Doncic. I also like what he's gonna do with Spencer Dinwiddie. Um, yeah, I'm really excited about him. particularly because he's going to make a huge impact on the Mavericks, who I've fallen in love with over the past year or two. And everyone knows last year I called it. I said Dallas was
You
going to make the
did, you
Western Conference
did.
Finals. I said it before the season too, right? Didn't
Yeah,
I?
pretty very early, like not enough to where it's like you're firm and you have a lot of evidence. Like
Yeah, it
you,
was like
that was a good
closer to
take.
Christmas time
Yeah,
last year. I was like, Dallas will make the Western Conference Finals. I was pretty damn positive of it, and they did. Actually, no, sorry, this was just before the All Star break. This is before the All Star break, I think.
they were still looking
Did we
like
start?
kind of on the bubble of even making like any noise at all at that point, I
Yeah.
believe too, right?
So, I mean, I think he'll be a huge addition. And even though, again, Jalen Brunson will be missed there, but when you fill a guy who's a 20-10 guy perennially, he's not a great defensive player, but you have front court players that can cover that up between JaVale and Dwight Powell. And Luka Doncic makes everyone better on the court. So I expect a huge year from him, not in terms of statistics, because I think that'll be down for him, considering how many options there are for Dallas. But I think in terms of impact, like when you have a guy like that on the floor, paired alongside of Luka Doncic, your attention has, you got to pick your poison, right? And so
No doubt.
that was the beauty of having the three guards they had last year when they went three guards small with Dinwiddie, Brunson, and Luka on the floor at the same time. You got to pick your poison, and so that's what Christian Wood does for this roster, I think.
My one question to that though is like, where do you think he fits in? Because I think a lot of reports are saying that they think the best option is for him to be sort of coming off the bench, and while he might not start games, he'll definitely close them out. So what do you think? Where do you think he
I
fits into this?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense because the reason why you want to bring him off the bench is they like going small regardless, right? And I think
Mm,
Christian Wood playing at the four loses a lot of versatility on the defensive end or on the offensive end as well, which they really liked last year. They did that really well with three guards. And in terms of what I'm looking at, it feels like they might want to start Luca, Tim Hardaway, Luca, like maybe Dinwiddie, Tim Hardaway, Finney Smith, Dwight Powell, or JaVale McGee, whoever it is, right? They might want to play that lineup out. They've always started Tim Hardaway with Luka Doncic. Um, but in my opinion, I think they would be better served if they went Luca, Tim Hardaway, Finney Smith, Christian Wood, Dwight Powell, or JaVale McGee, and then have one of those two centers come off the bench with Dinwiddie. I like Dinwiddie off the bench just because when you have another ball handler, right, you can come in off the bench and make an impact, get guys into their spots, and also be a huge offensive option. That's a lot different than having the big guy come in and expect him to score on offense because he can't control a lot of his own shots, right? So I think that makes sense from positionally and how their style of play is. We've seen how Dallas was last year. If they want to stick with that mold, then obviously they go in that direction. But I think you just have to utilize your talent where they're best fit, and I think Christian Wood starting makes more sense than him coming off the bench and have Dinwiddie come off the
mm.
bench. Tim Hardaway's out there for the extra shooting. Finney Smith is out there for the defense. Christian Wood is the second option behind Luka Doncic, and then you have your best anchor, which in this time I would probably think JaVale McGee is, just considering his historic performance and obviously it's just based on history, right? And I think Dwight Powell's better served coming off the bench with a guy like Dinwiddie.
Nah, yeah, solid take. In my opinion, yeah, I think you let him start, and I think you sort of challenge him in that sense because this is also a contract year for them. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the main reason why, because I believe his camp is obviously on the notion that he should be starting. So I think to start the year out, you let him start, and then if what's the saying? If he's as advertised, you let him roll through with that. But
Yeah,
if it's kind of his spot to lose, I think is that's how they should run it.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
It's a spot to lose for sure.
But alrighty, transitioning from players who are now in big good situations and have the opportunity to have a huge breakout year. Let's shift to the opposite. Who do you think is a player that could be traded and could find greener pastures and maybe blossom somewhere else?
The name that I was thinking of, I'll leave that for you because he's from New York. And so- oh,
Yeah, he should because he should go
he
to
should be
a team
traded.
that should actually give him some fucking PT.
Yeah, that fucker should be traded, man. I think yeah, Cam Reddish has to get traded. That's kind of an easy one. I think he's got to go to a team where they're developing and they're just gonna give the dude 30 minutes to just
Mm.
let his shit out. Like, you know what I mean? Like he just he just needs to be in a place where he can just go poo. You know what I mean? Like just let him go, bro.
Hey,
Let him
you
go
know
do what
what
he wants
though?
to.
Here, because I don't think we talked about this on the pod. We talked about it on the chat, but just a little aside: Seattle and Vegas are getting teams.
Yeah.
If Seattle, you know,
Don't tell
I
me to
don't
come to
know.
Seattle.
Hell yeah, I should come to Seattle. What do you mean?
I don't want to go down 2 hours to see Cam Reddish.
I will.
Oh hell
Wait,
no.
he's obviously not going to be like the fucking cream of the crop pick or whatever, but when you look at the guys that, okay, let me ask you this. Would you, not saying you would, but if if you have to drive 2 hours, would you rather watch Cam Reddish or fucking Evan Fournier?
Oh, come on. No, well, actually, Evan Fournier is an established
You're
NBA
not
player.
picking Evan Fournier. Don't fucking lie. You're not picking Evan Fournier.
I'll be real with you. I'd rather
If
see
it's
the guy that's
if it's
that
Europe,
played one more
if it's
year.
Eurobasket, Evan Fournier, sure. But if we're talking the dude who's like hot and cold, it is not consistent at all, bro. Come on now, you're picking
Yeah, you're
Cam
paying to
Reddish.
see Cam, but you're
Fuck
not paying to
yeah, I'm
see
paying to
Cam.
see
Okay,
Cam
then
Reddish.
those tickets better to be $5 because I'm not going to see Cam Reddish. Hell no, I'll see Evan Fournier. That man's got an established name in the league. Oh, come on now.
You mean established? You mean overpaid?
Hey, at least he got paid. At least he got
Shit,
paid. He
man.
got
Put
paid
Evan
for being a
Fournier in
good player.
Seattle. He's gonna have to get paid.
No, I don't know, man. That's a rough question. It's like asking me if I like,
Well,
I
yeah,
don't
it's
know.
obviously, I love you, Cam. If you ever watch this, I truly love you. But if we're looking at what we got in front of us right now, yeah, it's
Oh,
picking the less shitty of two shitty options. I will hold you there. But
oh man.
the
Oh.
upside, you know, I'm not gonna lie. Well, obviously, I liked watching a little bit of Cam Reddish in college. I'm not gonna say I was like watching every game or whatever, but that team it was on, that's a historic team. But the majority of my love for him really stems from Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals. I think he lit us up for like 30 or something like that. And yeah, he's just a guy that hasn't been given the right opportunity. And that right opportunity is in Seattle. When he turns,
Um.
when he's like 25, once they get their team, and he's a mediocre
Oh
15,
man.
5-2 guy.
Oh God. Well, on to players that I think should be traded to Blossom. Um, I've got two, and I think they both play the same position, and I think yeah, I think they both play the same position. It's clear that where they are currently, they can't. They're good. They're showing a lot of potential, but it's just they can't get over the hump, right? And I think those two players are Mo Bamba in Orlando and Miles Turner in Indiana. Um, Miles Turner is almost 25, 26. That's
I
around the
think
age where
I
you're
think he
starting to
is
hit your prime.
26 right now. I think he's
Yeah,
about to head
he's
into
starting to
27.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's starting to hit his prime, and right now he hasn't gotten a full opportunity to show his skills, considering he's also played behind Sabonis for a number of years. So I think that he's got to get dealt to a team where okay, he's the clear cut center, he's the anchor, he's going to get the opportunity to do what he does. For example, like a team like the Toronto Raptors, I think that's a great fit for him. Same thing with Mo Bamba in Orlando. He had a really good season last year. He did. But you're also talking about the fact that they've got brain fart here. What's his name? The other big they just got from Chicago.
Oh, Wendell Carter.
Wendell Carter
Yeah.
Jr. He just had a really solid season too. They're both flirting around the same numbers, and then you're bringing in Paulo
Bancaro. Yeah.
Banchero, and then you got Franz Wagner, and then you got Jalen Suggs. So I mean, it fits positionally. Like you have those two
And you
bigs
can't
with
forget about
you
Bull
guys.
Bull.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like they've got to go a more today's traditional lineup now. So I mean, my thoughts are I think those two guys just need to find a new environment to flourish. Mo Bamba, I think, is 23 or 24 now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, right about that, I think.
Yeah, so I think they just need new environments for them to flourish, in my opinion. I think they've done their time. They're not getting the oomph that they need from their coaching staff and that development where they are. So they need. I think they just need somewhere where they're clear cut, the center on the team, where they play the minutes, where they're given a chance to make mistakes, and then I think that's where they'll be able to blossom, or how they'll be able to blossom.
So is this your pitch for Miles Turner or Mo Bamba to Toronto?
100%. I
I
wanted
respect
either
that.
of them
I
this past
respect that.
season.
Yeah. No, generally, not to just like shift this all over the place, but Toronto I think is a center from being into like right at that tip of the like contention, I feel.
How could I forget? They've already got Koloko. We don't need him.
You a
We got
Christian Coloco
7-1 Koloko.
truther?
I am a truther because he looks really good, and I like the fact that he's very athletic. Clearly, Fred Van Vliet likes playing with him. He's gonna have a lot of defensive lapses this year because the game's really fast. But I am a truther. I feel like he'll be able to pick stuff up really quickly. He's got all the skills on the defensive end.
And
He's got
he's
really
in
good
probably
timing.
one of the best situations if you're like not a guy who got a lot of looks and heading out of college. But yeah.
Yeah, no, agreed. So I am a Christian Coloco truther, and I'm really excited to see a traditional athletic center at the 5 spot this season. I don't know how much time he'll get. I don't believe too much, to be honest, but I will like seeing him there. I could be wrong because this past year Nick Nurse threw in a lot of young guys into lineup right away. Like, and no one was really expecting Delano Banton to get as many minutes as he did to start the year. So I wouldn't be surprised if Christian Coloco is like one of the first bigs off the bench over Ken Birch or Chris Boucher. Could happen. Also, we need to trade Ken Birch. He can blossom somewhere else.
I don't know if there's much blossom to do if you're like he's like 32, isn't he?
He's like 30 with basically injuries every second season, like every second week of the
Yeah.
season.
Yeah. All right. For players that I think should be traded, I obviously kind of went on a very passionate tangent about Cam Reddish, but it's another guy in New York. I think Obi Toppin has the
Yeah,
chance and should be able to
good
find
one.
consistent PT because when he's on the floor, super solid. Obviously, one of the best transition players when you're looking at the ability to drive to the hoop. The I think not even just from like the X's and O's of basketball standpoint, but if you're a team that is looking for a little marketing boost, Obi Toppin's the perfect dude. When you're a little kid, you don't give a fuck about people, or maybe you do a little bit about players being able to cook other guys, but you want to see guys throw down the hardest, stankiest, nastiest dunks, and Obi Toppin is a guy that can deliver that. So, you know, he's obviously playing behind a guy that New York is forced into playing major minutes, and Julius Randle. Obviously, you gave him all that money. So he is a
Yep.
guy that, I get it. Your hometown, you might want to just kind of tough it out, but put him in another situation. Whew. Another guy is, I think, well, okay, so it's Kobe White, but with all the Lonzo Ball stuff happening, I think that might be a little. He might be in the situation now where he could have the chance to blossom, but that's the blossom for him to get traded. But Kobe White is obviously a guy that's came into the league and is a little, here and there. Sometimes he's good, sometimes he's ass. He's very in between everything. But if you put him on a team that needs like a bench scorer, I think Kobe White completely fills that role perfectly. When you look at like his skills, I think it is very catered towards being a six man kind of role. And with all like the guard depth they have, Ayo Dosunmu, Lonzo Ball, Zach Levine, Dalen Terry, who they just drafted and is looking like as kind of this Lonzo Ball esque mold. The pecking order gets very short when you look at minutes for guys like Kobe White. So put him in another situation. I think maybe like low key, put him in a situation like Miami, given that I think Tyler
Mm.
Hero has a chance to start, could be solid. And maybe you could make the money match because, I mean, Duncan Robinson is obviously a guy who's in Spo's doghouse. He's not really going to be on shit. So,
Oh, I think you just started something interesting there.
hey, Kobe White for Duncan Robinson. I think you obviously got to
Okay.
do a
Oh
bit more to
man,
make money match, but Chicago is a team that lacks a lot of 3-point scoring, obviously, because you got guys like DeRozan, but
Duncan Robinson makes a lot of sense in
it does.
Chicago.
But you know how that team's going to look? 120 points per game, but they're going to give up like 130. So some like
Yeah. Well, I
absurd
mean,
shit
Kobe
like
White.
that.
If Kobe like Lonzo Ball isn't going to be around to start the year, that's an interesting situation because if they don't have Lonzo to start the year, Kobe White's going to get a lot of time. Him and
Mm.
Ayo Dosunmu. I do like the defensive versatility that Chicago does have because Pat Williams is back healthy. I do like the fact that they have Ayo Dosunmu who can
Yeah,
guard
Io can
multiple
guard 1 through
positions. When
3.
Lonzo's
Yeah.
back, they'll be fine. Um, and so I'll be interested to see what happens, but I think that's an interesting thing. I think it's a match made in heaven, um, because Kobe White would fit really well in Miami, especially as a backup guard for Kyle Lowry. Even though they've got homeboy Gabe Vincent, I would like Kobe White there. And then Duncan Robinson would add a lot of shooting. They thought Matt Thomas was going to be that, but they didn't clearly scout the Raptors well enough to know that Matt Thomas is pretty garbage. So, yeah, I think Duncan Robinson would be a great fit there. I think start something. Hey, man, front offices, NBA front offices, listen
Yeah.
to the Blacktop Pod, man. We're
Listen, dropping gems all the
100%.
time. Like the fact that Cam Reddish is going to be the main attraction when Seattle gets their team.
Jesus Christ. I'd rather watch Bol Bol.
I'm not gonna lie, I probably would too.
Hey, yeah, there you
I
go.
hey, on a little aside, I'm not gonna lie. Every time I do like an expansion thing on 2K, he's normally one of the first guys I pick because he's like a cheat code in 2K. But
True.
yeah. But all right, here's a random section I'm gonna throw you, Reuben. So
Yeah.
we are literally like less than a month because I think the season starts on the 16th, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I want to say it's the 18th.
18th.
I believe it's 18th on Tuesday. Yes, it is the 18th. Yeah, Tuesday.
Mm. Ooh, when Steph gets to collect his ring in front of LeBron. Anyways, what is your one? We've already had a few on this, but curious. What's a hot take you have for this incoming season? Whether it's like a
Man,
dark horse for an
okay. I should have
award
just waited for then.
or
Okay, fine. I'll say
you
mine
can
again,
expand
and
it
then I'll
on
add
it.
another
Yeah.
one. Okay, I think the LA Clippers are gonna win the West. I think they're gonna win the West. I think when they're fully healthy, I mean, you added the pieces that they did, Robert Covington, Norman Powell. They're super deep. You're bringing back your healthy superstars, and then you're bringing John Wall into the fold, who I think was the missing piece. If he's healthy and if he's right, um, it seems like he's there. If did you read his Players Tribune about
Oh,
his
I haven't.
story? Like,
Well, I know it's been like a
oh my
tough
god,
few years for him. Yeah.
oh my god, the dude is locked in.
Mm.
So I think this season is kind of vengeance for him because people have written him off. So I am really excited to see him in a Clippers uniform alongside with his buddy Paul George. So I think that's going to be fun to watch. I just think like when Kawhi is on, I just think that he's just the best player in the league. I just think so. We saw it even after the Toronto season where he just decided to turn up. I think that was 2021 where he kind of just took over the playoff series and then he got injured, right? Where he couldn't play against Phoenix. But dude, Kawhi can take over a game. He can score in multiple ways. There's not a lot of defenses that stifle what he does. He's such a strong dude, and the biggest thing, right, is he can guard the best player in the league. Like I think when he's healthy, he's still the best defender in the NBA, and I don't think it's very close because there's like he's so strong. I just like I have an affinity for him, obviously, because he helped Toronto win the championship. But we've seen it. Like the dude can win playoff series on his own, which
Single-handedly,
is
for sure.
single handedly, which is what he did against Philly in 2019. And so when he's healthy, I think he's the best player in the league. Um, I would say one A, one B with Giannis because I think Giannis has reached a different level too.
You know the
And I just have to,
vibes. My
and
guy.
it's not to, it's not because I love DJ. It's because of the fact that I'm just being real about Giannis. And if that jump shot looks pretty scary, if you guys have been watching Eurobasket,
Here's the thing. I take all that shit with a grain of salt because I saw his shot like last off season and I thought he was gonna be on shit. I'm not saying
yeah,
his
you
shot's gonna
never
be
know.
ass, but if he gets to like 35%, he wins MVP. If you ask me. But
Well, let me just say this. Let me just say this. You definitely have more room for error in Eurobasket than you do in the NBA.
oh yeah, no doubt.
Like, who's gonna sit there and say, "Oh, Giannis, don't shoot jump shots"? Some
If
Euro like
I'm
I'm
the
sorry, some EuroLeague
if
coach is
if
gonna tell
I'm the
him to do that.
Greece coach, it's like when you roll up to an AAU tournament with like a whole bunch of nationally ranked kids. You're not even fucking coaching.
Yeah,
You
you're
just
just
let them
standing
play.
there and telling them, "Okay, like this is what you do. Call a timeout when you need to."
Yeah.
Like it's you're not really coaching. You're just there to make some substitutions, right? Like you don't tell Giannis what to do. NBA coach is probably like, "Hey, buddy, this is what you got to do." But yeah, my one hot take is the Clippers will win the West because they're deep. They've got the best collection of talent. Um, Tyronn Lue does not get enough credit for being a really good coach. Um,
Oh, he's top three for sure, and he's
I
not
hate
three.
to admit it. I hate to admit it, but they've got a really good they've got really great structure organizationally. Steve Ballmer's done a great job since they turned it over from the racist Sterling.
Ooh.
And then Lawrence Frank has done a great job. Obviously, they've got Jerry West there at an exec position. And Tyronn Lue has been a championship coach. Everywhere he's gone as a head man, has always been winning. And then you've got Kawhi Leonard as the head of the beast, and then you've got a number of pieces behind you. They brought in all those guys. I mean, it's just hard to argue against the fact that this team will be very good. And if they're not, then I'll be glad to be wrong because it's not like this opinion or this take that I'm giving isn't any new. There's a lot of people saying that the Clippers are going to win the West. Um, my other hot take is I think Pascal Siakam will be an All NBA player this year and an NBA All Star starter again. I think he's poised for a huge season again because after missing about first 2 months of last year, he ended up finishing with an All NBA nod, right? And I think he should have been an NBA All Star, but clearly people just didn't have enough time to see him because he missed so much time at the beginning of the year. But I think Pascal will be a top 15 player just in terms of like his performance next year. So I'm really excited to see how he does. Yeah,
Respect, respect. Those are two
Pascal's gonna be
solid
solid.
takes. All right, I'll give you two quick ones here. Number one, the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to be a top three team in the East. I'm
Ah,
gonna make that call. If
oh,
you want to bet, let me know. And my second take, actually, to expand on my first take, Donovan Mitchell. Yeah, sure, you don't play defense, but that's not why you traded for him. You traded for him to get some motherfucking buckets. You allow Darius Garland to be more of a natural point guard. Yeah, he can score a bit, but having a guy like Donovan Mitchell is going to take a lot of the pressure off. And Isaac Okoro is going to be guarding the best best perimeter players. So those two guys playing behind him don't have to worry about guarding, say, a Paul George or anything like that. Because of course they get cooked.
yeah.
Evan Mobley, super solid. One of this like generational talents. Jared Allen, absolute beast. The afro is a thing to be feared, and if he's healthy, scary hours. And don't forget about Karis LeVert, man, hometown kid. Let him be the sixth man. Shit, might have the next 50-point game off the bench. You never know. Not only that, Kevin Love, he was in the sixth man of the year conversation. Seti Osman, this guy they thought he was going to be next. He's a solid eighth, ninth man. Take that how you will. Isaiah Mobley, Evan's brother. He probably not gonna play, but if he does, fuck it, might be solid. All the things I think on paper are saying that the Cavs are supposed to be good. And with a young up and coming coach like JB Bickerstaff, I think what's on paper will turn into reality. Now for my second one, this one's like a little less hot, or not necessarily hot in terms of like. Actually, yeah, fuck it. Originally, I was gonna say X player is gonna be a first time All Star, but I've already kind of said that about Tyrese Halliburton. My second hot take: the Hawks are gonna be in the play in. When DeJounte Murray is
Yeah, I
looked
agree.
at
I
this
see that.
kind of like not necessarily savior, but this guy that's going to take off a lot of the stress of Trae Young ball handling, all that. But I just think it's going to be a lot of growing pains. Two guys
Yeah.
that are one of the higher usage rate players in the league. Everybody, I think, is assuming that because Trae Young's under 6'5" and because he can shoot the ball, he's supposed to be godlike like Steph Curry. And when it's off ball, I'll believe that when I see it. I think, yeah, obviously the eye test and everything that kind of is measurable from like an untangible aspect. Yeah, he might be solid off ball, but until we see it happen, I'm gonna hold off my reservations about that. And
Hmm.
then I just think that again, it's a lot of movement versus like a lot of teams are still set in their ways and solid in that. Milwaukee didn't have much gravity in terms of movement. The Celtics, they had gravity and movement, but they upgraded way, way more with a guy like Malcolm Brogdon. Not compared to a guy like DeJounte, but yeah, I
Well,
just think that it's going to be a lot of shuffling. And with
yeah.
that, they're going to lose a few games where they lose because they're not all on the same page.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, another player to add in there that a guy that should be traded to Blossom is John Collins. I don't know if he'll be a
I'm not gonna
huge
lie.
beneficiary.
I might have to disagree with you there because I think he's in the role to catch a lot of lobs. Not necessarily that that's going to be his
Yeah,
prime point of offense, but yeah, obviously, like his ability to be an impact with the ball might be impacted a lot. But when you have the ability of him to pick and pop, you have the ability of him to catch lobs with Trae Young, who he has a lot of chemistry with. I think he can get back up to like. Now, I think originally I had him like getting back to 20 and 10. I've come down a little bit from that. I think he can be a solid like 15 and 10 guy, I think. But I
yeah.
agree. Like if we're talking like blossoming into the best possible player in terms of like scoring output, definitely maybe trade him. But when you look at
I
the role he
yeah.
plays, I think he's in the right spot.
I think there's huge room for John Collins to grow, and I think you just said it right. Like it's gonna have a huge impact on him having the ball. Um, and so when you have a guy who could potentially be really good at shot creation who doesn't have the ball, you take away a lot of his potential output. And so if you're gonna stick him as the pick and roll pop guy, he's playing a very specific role. So what does that mean? He's a role player, right? And he's a guy that easily could have had all star potential. And I think he still has that, but I think he has to be traded to Blossom, and or they give him the keys to say, okay, Dejounte and Trey like have to take a step back, and John is going to take a huge step forward. But no one's going to say that. No one's
Yeah.
going to do that because Trey Young is a bona fide all star in this league, and Dejounte is also as well. So I think it'll be interesting to watch them play together. Like you said, there's going to be a lot of growing pains. So I agree 100% they're going to lose games because they're not on the same page. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's also more movement throughout the season because I think there's still some significant holes in their roster before they start contending.
Yeah, their
So,
bench is
when,
looking very, very sus.
yeah,
You
it's
know,
a
they
terrible
they, they
bench.
got both the Holiday brothers, and they think they go be on Drew shit. Fuck, they might not be even on half of that. Just a
I mean, the
Holiday,
funniest thing,
cool. Aaron Holiday,
dude,
but Drew Holiday, that's the motherfucking truth.
dude, they're trying to be on Drew shit. They're not even gonna be half of that.
No.
That's hilarious, bro. That's hilarious, dude. You said it earlier too. Sorry, I wanted to touch on it. Like Milwaukee was literally a Chris Middleton away from being in the NBA Finals again.
They
Let's
would
be
have
real.
fucking smoked Golden State, man.
This is not a yeah.
Oh my
Like
goodness, man. I'm not gonna lie. my
Yeah, they would have
my
won the
mother,
finals.
I love you with all my heart, but I would have been talking so much fucking shit if they went to the finals and they smacked them. No
I think
lie.
they would have beat Golden State.
Mm.
I mean, Giannis itself presents so many matchup problems, and Chris Middleton would have taken off so much pressure off Drew Holiday, right? And I think that was the biggest thing is Drew had to end up being the second option when they ran the wall. And the beautiful part about what this roster has done is okay, when they run the wall on Giannis, all he has to be is a decoy. And you have Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday, which they did so well in that 2021 season. When you lose one of your main scoring options like Chris Middleton, was able to score off the pound, he's able to score multiple ways, right? He's been a total offensive package for them and also a very good defender, let's not forget. Like when you lose that, your pecking order changes, right? And so now you have guys in roles where they're not supposed to be. And you've practiced this way all year long. You've played this way. You've competed this way all year long. And so when things change, especially at the highest levels, it's so hard to make that adjustment. So, anyways, I just wanted to touch on that because you literally said that, Milwaukee didn't make very much gravity. Getting Chris Middleton back healthy
Oh yeah,
is the
they didn't
gravity.
really need to, I don't think, and I didn't really get to
I
touch
agree.
on it, but Jingling Joe Jingles, Joe
Yeah,
Ingles.
Joe Ingles was a
Joe
huge
Ingles
ad.
is a big
Huge
ad.
ad.
Gives us another
If he's
ball
healthy.
handler. Yeah, even if he's not healthy, because we got him, I think, for the simple fact that it gives you another guy that can handle the ball and spot up. That's obviously been
And
the bread and
defend. And
butter.
defend.
Yeah, the bread and
And
butter of
defend.
Milwaukee. And shit, man, I think it was like 45% his last like fully healthy season or something like that from three.
Yeah.
So, and then I really like the
And
young guy they
yeah,
got, Marjan Beauchamp. Love the
me too.
story. Love the I don't want to say narrative because that kind of shapes it in the way that it's like, you know what I mean? But no, I love Marjan. I think he's gonna have a really big chance to be solid this year. And yeah, Milwaukee, this should be the road to the three-peat, but that's okay. Let's go get ring number 3 as our franchise.
I see them back in the finals. I
Mm.
would love to see a Bucks Clippers finals. I would love to see a Bucks Clippers finals. I would kill to see Giannis and Kawhi go at it again because that was so much fun in 2019. And I'm grateful that my team walked away with the championship.
Yeah, that might be
Um, you know what
man.
would have been a fun series if we saw it? Looking back at that year, if it was Milwaukee and Philly. That would have been a hell of a series.
Ooh.
Because remember, you're talking about Philly. I mean, Toronto sneaked out of that series on that shot. But you're
It
talking
probably
about
would
a
have been a
Philly
similar
team.
situation though, I feel. Because that Philly team,
Simmons, Redick, Butler, Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid. That team was
yeah,
so
like
set for a championship. They
I
easily could have
think,
won the championship that
oh, no
year.
doubt. When you look at the starting fives that have ever been on paper, I think that's
That might be
literally
the
like
best.
top 10 for sure, maybe even top 5. Like actually no, fuck it, top 5 cuz I mean, yeah, fuck. A prime Jimmy
Dude,
Butler, Ben Simmons coming to his prime, Joel Embiid's a tear, one of the best spot up shooters in JJ Redick, Tobias Harris who was like poised as this sort of all-star and
damn, starting with some of the starting fives that year, it was like, okay, Philly. Then you look at Toronto, where it was like, let's say the best players just started, right?
mm,
Kyle Lowry, Fred VanVleet, Kawhi Leonard, Pascal Siakam, Marc Gasol. That's 5 All Stars. If Golden State was fully healthy, obviously it would be a different series. But Curry,
yeah,
Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant, like that's just those 3 alone right there.
that's enough gravity to
Um,
bring you all the way, yeah.
um, Milwaukee obviously didn't have the roster it did now, but still,
Man,
then who was it? George Hill. It was Malcolm Brogdon,
Eric fucking
Giannis.
Bledsoe, I think, was the
Oh
starting
yeah, Eric
guard.
Bledsoe. Yeah, he was a starting 2 guard,
Oh
and
my
then George Hill came off
goodness.
the bench. But man, that was such a competitive team. They played really
For
well.
real.
Brook Lopez was right in his prime.
Oh, in
Like
his bag. Okay, wait, Ruben.
um
Do you remember that play where Eric Bledsoe was the inbounder and he dribbled that shit in?
yeah,
Bro, I was at that fucking game. And I was like, yeah. This is the
dude,
first
no
game
way.
I ever watched. And I was like, fuck this dude, Eric Bledsoe, man. Fuck you.
He's not in the league right now.
Yeah, he's
So
a free agent. I think he could maybe 5 minutes a game. He could do some damage, but damage in terms of probably losing your team the game, shit.
yeah, dude, that guy coming with a plus minus and -20.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, before we end this, I know we've gone like super overtime here.
All
Okay,
good.
right now,
Yeah,
off
yeah.
the top of your head, give me your top five NBA players. No order. Top five NBA players right now.
Right now,
Top five, because this has been a huge conversation. ESPN's
Giannis.
rankings came
Giannis
out.
is one. Jokic is two. I think Luca's three. Curry's
Ooh,
four. And
ooh.
then fuck. I think five.
Okay, keep in
Five. I would
mind,
put
no
MB.
injuries, no injuries, no
No
injuries.
injuries. Oh wait, fuck. Okay, wait. That yeah, I've read this shit
Keep
back.
in mind, no injuries. Like,
Fully healthy. Everybody's good to go.
yes, yeah, yeah.
Giannis, Jokic, Kawhi, Curry, Luca. I think that's my five. What about you?
Giannis, Kawhi, KD, Steph, Jokic. I left out Embiid and I left out Luca.
Uh,
I left out LeBron. I left out James Harden.
yeah, I'm just leaving K. I think that's just a recency bias for me, low key, because it's like,
He got
well,
clapped.
yeah, exactly. He got fucking
He got
clapped.
clapped.
He got clapped with fucking Kyrie.
Yeah,
Oh my
that was
goodness.
rough. That was a rough series. I don't know what happened to Brooklyn, dude.
Yeah,
If
that
Brooklyn's
shit
back
might have
in
been
that,
close, but fuck it, man. 4-0 is 4-0.
yeah. I don't know. I Kevin Durant is still like just an unbelievable offensive player. So I have to throw him in there because like no one's he's the prototype player. Him, Kawhi, Giannis, Steph, Jokic.
Mm, okay.
Top five.
Okay. Real quick. This can be for sure the last question. Where would you rank KD all time offensively?
Oh God.
If you're listening on audio, Ruben's just like head in the ceiling, really trying to like think about this.
Okay. I have to talk. Okay, so I have to do all time rankings before I find this position. Are we talking about bag or we're talking about statistics? We're talking about like everything all together, right? Like we're talking about the whole
Fuck
package stuff.
everything. Game
But
situation, 5 seconds left, last shot of the game. You have to get a bucket. Where does he rank amongst guys that you would give
oh
the
my
ball to?
God.
Or actually, no. Fuck that. This is the Blacktop podcast. It's 20. It's 19-20. Last shot to win the game. You're at Rucker. Everybody's going crazy.
Okay,
You got
okay,
motherfuckers
okay,
in like top of apartment buildings watching.
okay. Shoot, man. Third,
Who are the two above
third.
them?
Mike and Kobe.
I like that. Yeah, listen, I love Kareem, Bucks legend, but like, shit, man. If I was 7 foot and I had that shot, yeah, sure, I could get a bucket. But when it comes to
I'll
pure,
take. Yeah, I'm sorry.
oh yeah,
I
but
just
just
need to
when it comes
say,
to pure getting buckets, those three.
yeah,
Yeah.
Mike and Kobe have just proven an innate ability, like unmatched ability, to just get whatever they want, anytime, anywhere, elevate over defenses. Their skills beyond. I would say Kevin third only because of the fact that historically those two have such a like their careers and are built off of making those shots.
Mm.
KD, yes, like he's had those shots, right? But like his, it's a little bit tainted considering
He doesn't have
the
a
amount of
game
winning he's
six.
done.
He doesn't have a game six final shot like Mike.
He
Yeah.
doesn't, yeah, he doesn't have a game six. He doesn't have like those multiple, game winners where you see them on repeat every now and then. But
Shit, he
when you have a
almost had
guy,
one by this
he
much.
did, um, he you're 6'11". You can handle like a guard and can shoot over defenses. His ability, I think he's the best shot creator we've ever seen in the league. I'll say that.
Mm.
I'll say in terms of like where we rank them offensively and you give them the ball, clutch situation, I would actually go Kobe over Mike. Kobe, Mike, KD.
I respect that.
Because I think if you were to see them go at it today, Mike was a bad dude, but Kobe wanted to fuck you up. Like, I think Kobe wanted to kill you. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like Kobe actually wanted to kill you on the court, and like
Kobe
Mike was that too. But Kobe
Kobe
was different.
generally had no holes offensively, I would say.
No,
No holes.
there were no holes. Mike, it was the 3-point shot
Mm.
that wasn't as good. Where Kobe worked it to a point where it was, if you leave him wide open, it's pretty much butter.
Mm.
And so KD is just a different type of player we've never seen before, and I think there's still no one like him today. And so it'll be a sad day he leaves, because who can ever see a 7-footer take it up and down, hezzies and crossovers and spin moves and then jump shot right in the pocket and just. Anyways, excuse my language there, everybody. I just needed to go extra on Kobe because, like, pay that man his respects. Like, he was so deadly. Like, there's a reason why he's called Black Mamba. Sometimes I forget, man. I'm just like, Kobe was a dog, dude. Like, if you saw him, he would try to rip your throat apart. You know what I mean? Like,
There's no other player in the league or NBA history that would hiss as seriously as he did.
yeah, 100%. Kobe was a different breed. Like Mike was Mike was dirty. He was deadly. He was like at your throat. He would do the same stuff. But I feel like Kobe took that and just went to a whole different level on the
Oh,
court.
Kobe was literally an assassin. Literally.
Yeah. Oh man. Damn. Kobe was so fun to watch. I miss him.
No doubt. And I think that's the perfect way to end another episode of the Blacktop Podcast. We appreciate y'all listening. If you made it this far, you must have enjoyed it. Like, subscribe, follow, all that good stuff. Hopefully, we're able to be whole again soon. But until then, stay safe, stay blessed. We'll see y'all soon.
Peace. Black shots, back shots, back shots.